of this world, pleasures, time, and gold and fame. I don't have to slave for anything, 'cause Jesus got it all. So I gotta go, I gotta call in. My Savior's got a plan for me. My Savior's got a plan for me, yeah. This world.
Hello and welcome to a special presentation of GSMTV coming to you from our Brooklyn Center studio in Minnesota. It's been a while since we had another presentation like this, but we want to assure you that GSMTV is back and we intend to continue our series. Our programming will be focusing on activities related to Liberian communities across the United States of America, primarily our base here in Minnesota. For our resumption today, we have a very special guest in our studio, the Honorable Jackson George Jr., Consul General of the Midwest for the Republic of Liberia. As you may recall, Mr. George was appointed and commissioned, as a matter of fact, by the Ellen Johnson Sirleaf administration following the transfer of the Liberian consulate to Minnesota from Chicago. And that transfer was made with some expectations that we'd like to delve into to get updates from the Consul General. We will be talking about that. And we'll be also discussing the Liberian Business Association. Mr. George happens to be the current president of the Liberian Business Association branch in the United States. And we want to know some of the official activities of the consulate now that he is understood to have officially begun his operation following his confirmation, but this time under the WEA administration. We'll be right back.
I'm gonna walk with Jesus, no matter how far it is. Me and him forever, yeah, yeah. Just me and him forever, yeah, yeah. Forever me and Jesus, yeah, yeah. Just me and him forever, yeah.
As I indicated earlier, my special guest in our studio today happens to be the Consul General of the Liberian Consulate for the Midwest, which is now based in Minnesota, the Honorable Jackson Carlton George Jr. Mr. George, Ambassador George, I don't know what to call you, but let me just cut it short and say, Consular, welcome to GSM Studio.
Thank you.
So, what is the current status of the consulate?
I think the consulate is officially open.
Okay.
As you rightly said, in December, I was appointed and commissioned. And so we are officially open, and the consulate is functioning.
So when you say functioning, that is an operative word that actually suppresses the butterfly of expectation within me. Because at the time of your appointment, the big news was that upon its operation, that is once you started operating, things like passport acquisition will no longer be solely done in Washington, D.C. That is, if you live in this part of the country and you need a passport to travel to Liberia, you didn't necessarily have to go to Washington, but you could get your passport here. If you live close to Minnesota, all you had to do was come to Minnesota.
True.
Would you like to, again, elaborate on
Joe,
that?
as you know, these things take time. And so right now, we are looking at how the government can deploy these things in this area. And so it's going to take some time. There are processes that need to be worked on. There are training that needs to take place. And so we are working steadily to ensure that that happens. I'm not sure when that's going to be, but that process is in place right now.
Okay. For the benefit of people who really don't understand, who do not understand how the consulate is set up and how it operates, could you just school us a little bit about staffing, provision, support, and what have you?
Well, as honorary consul, the burden is on me as an individual to manage the affairs of the consulate, and that has been happening. In terms of staffing, I do have an administrative assistant, and I'm trying to get in office chief of staff just because now we're beginning to function much more, the needs are more now. And so one of the things that I want to say is that the consulate represents the interest of the Liberian government in the Midwest, and we work through the embassy. And so Liberians who are going through some issues, I don't want the consulate to be looked at as a visa and passport consulate, because there's much more we can do in terms of attracting investment into Liberia, representing the interests of Liberians in the diaspora. I mean, those are things that we need to do. The consulate is also, the state of Minnesota got notification, and now we are part of the Minnesota Diplomatic Corps. And so we meet once a month, and we share best practices. We go to dinners and other things. So we are meeting with the people that we need to meet with. We are attracting the kind of businesses that we need to attract to go to Liberia. I think the biggest thing we need right now, as from the consulate point of view or from the foreign mission point of view, is how we can attract investment in Liberia to have immediate impact so that we can start hiring people, creating jobs in Liberia. I think that's where I want to focus my attention in the area of agriculture, healthcare, education. And so if we can attract the kind of businesses that we need to go to Liberia and invest, that will be fine. We're also looking at trade fairs and so many other things. But I think the issue of visa and passport is paramount. The community is, we are receiving a lot of concerns, people coming in wanting the process and other things. So I think the foreign ministry understands the need, and I think soon, if not later, we'll have that. We'll have those two products running side by side at the consulate here.
Well, I mean, so it is my understanding that by virtue of your assumption of responsibilities in this setting, you are a diplomat.
Correct.
You have joined the diplomatic corps.
Correct.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, on that note, sir, how will you describe the beginning of your relationship with the new Liberian government under President George Weah?
I think government is a continual process. I think the relationship as a consul general is mutual. I have received good reception. I have provided good reception. I think from where I sit, everything is fine. It's not as fast, but government is never fast. And so we just have to be patient and understand that these things take time and they're going to work through itself. I do know that the community is putting a lot of pressure on, but I just want it, by the time it gets here, let it be done right. And so we are taking our time. We are sending in the right messages that we need to do to send in, and government understand that. And so hopefully soon we will start processing on this end to alleviate some of the pressure that the embassy and the other foreign missions are having from this Midwest area.
I can imagine the growing pressure, especially with requests about the facilitation of passport processing and all of that. What would be your prediction? I mean, you know, about how long you think before we start to see?
Well, I don't want to make any predictions now,
Okay.
again, because it's a process. It takes a lot of pieces for the puzzle to work. And so I'm hoping that soon we will start something on this end. But I think right now the process is still, people are still sending the paperwork to the embassy. Where we need to intervene, we are intervening. so that they can have the people, the passports or the visas to be able to travel. So, but I think processing from this end would do so much good for this sector or this for the Midwest. And so we are hopeful that it's going to happen. It takes a lot of work. And so all of these things will have to be put in place to ensure that we are not overwhelmed with all of that. But it will happen. How soon, I'm not sure.
How is the state of Minnesota, surrounding states, and the diplomatic community as a whole responding to you?
Well, as you know, in Minnesota, we have 29 honorary consuls. I think we have three full consulates. And so I'm the newest, I would say. But I think it's a learning process for me. When we go to our consul corps meetings, you've met people who've been consul general for 20 years, 30 years, people who've retired and still part of the consul corps. And so you got a rich knowledge base within the consul corps, and they are very open to showing me the loopholes and how we can attract the kind of investment we need. The other day I was at the Brazilian consulate. They just had a new Brazilian honorary consul. The one that was there kind of retired, and it was beautiful to see that Brazil, you know, is the largest producer of sugar. Brazil is closer to Liberia in terms of shipment of product from Brazil to Liberia. And so I met the Japanese honorary consul, the German. And so how do we build relationship to tie in with our country? But more so, if a Liberian were leaving Minnesota and going to Germany and needed some information, how can we connect that person with the right resource so that when they got into Germany, or when they got into Germany and got some problems, they can call the consulate in Minnesota. We can connect with the consulate, the Brazilian consulate or the Japanese consulate or any consulate for that matter, just to ensure that Liberian citizens are taken care of. And so that's the beauty about having a consulate in the Midwest, like you got the one in Atlanta and then a full consulate in New York. So this would be beneficial to our citizens, and I think it will help alleviate some of the problems that we've having over the period of time.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is GSMTV Network coming to you from Brooklyn Center in Minnesota. If you're just joining us, my special guest in the studio today is the Honorable Jackson Carlton George Jr., our newly appointed and commissioned Consul General for the Midwest in Minnesota. Mr. George happens to also actually be wearing two caps, because he is also one of the founders and the current president of the Liberian Business Association in America. That organization also has another branch in Liberia and has been very active in trying to promote the idea of encouraging Liberian participation in the restructuring of the Liberian economy, the growth of the Liberian economy from an advanced, active participation level. That is a mouthful to swallow, especially when you tie that into the current pro-poor agenda of the George Weah administration. Now, without getting a little bit political in tone, let me just recall for those of you within the Liberian community in Minnesota who may have not known that recently a 5-man Liberian delegation representing the George Weah administration was on a tour of the United States and made a stop in Minnesota. Now, there was some beef about the visitation because they had a town hall meeting scheduled, but prior to the meeting, they had a special session with members of the Liberian Business Association, and the delegation showed up at the town hall meeting about an hour late, and the squabble and noise in the hall at the United Methodist Church was that the Liberian Business Association got preference to the town hall meeting, and so people at the town hall meeting were given limited time to engage the visiting delegation. Notwithstanding, however, I am convinced that the discussions between the Liberian Business Association and the visiting delegation touched on very meaningful topics. But I wasn't there, and being as curious as I can be as a journalist, and having the president here, I cannot help but ask you, sir, to share the outcome of your discussions, at least just the discussions. Perhaps some proposals were made and you haven't got results yet, but you took all the time from the community and the people were mad about it. They were vexed with you.
Well, let me use this time to apologize if the community feel that way. I think the minister and his delegation came to solicit ideas and to get the input of Liberians in the diaspora, especially when you have over 40,000 Liberians in one state. That's why they came. The meeting with the Business Association, equally so, they also came to promote the proper agenda. And so when you have a lot of Liberian businesses in this one area, and you are meeting when the minister and his group decided to meet with us, it was a good discussion. We touched on how Liberians in the diaspora could assist in rebuilding Liberia, how Liberian businesses that are already in business here and doing business in Liberia, how can we contribute to the growth and development of our homeland? And so we look at the agricultural area, we look at, again, healthcare, education, infrastructure development and other stuff. What we put forth was for government to create the enabling environment for us to be able to come home and contribute to the growth and development. I think the big thing is we need to create more jobs, and we need a private sector to drive the economy. And so that was some of the meetings we held with the Minister of Finance and his delegation. And so if you can remember, a few days ago, we had a Liberian business from here, that is the president's wife broke ground to build a hospital complex in Liberia. That's part of our agenda. And so that hospital will be about maybe a 300-bed hospital, and will hire, I would say, up to maybe 100 people. So how can we duplicate things like those in Liberia so we can hire more people, create a middle class, and have the business sector driving our economy? And so I feel bad that that the community did not get the time, but when you're sitting down with business people and you got an agenda, and those are the people who can help drive your agenda, you spend a lot of time with them. So I'm hoping that they will come back again. We are asking for another meeting to sit down on a broader scale where we invite the major players and invite investors and us, so we can sit down and see how this public-private sector can forge a relationship that can help our homeland. But I think we as Liberians in the diaspora need to do more. Some Liberians are successful. If I can tell you, we can identify, remember the idea of the Business Association was to first identify the resources in our community. Mm-hmm. Now we know we got doctors, we got lawyers, we got dentists, I mean, you name it. We got every business in every business sector. We got construction companies in the United States that got construction companies in Liberia. So all of these things are good for us. But how do we help our homeland? How can we take these talents and resources and put that into Liberia to be able to help our homeland? And that's something we need to work with the government and with the private sector. Again, that is where I think my position here as Consul General and head of the Liberian business is very strategic in that I can link with government, get the right people that need to make the decision,
burn wire,
and get
I was saying
the business sector. And so I think this joining is a good joining. And remember, this is the first time in 70 years we've had a transfer. The government is settling down. And so I think people need to be patient. People need to understand that government will continue, but I think we as Liberians in the diaspora must be hungry to help. And I don't know if we are hungry enough. I think we blame everybody for everything. We want to see our country develop, but
automatically.
But we are not the ones fighting to develop it, but we just want to see our country develop. So we are hoping that one morning we get up and Liberia will be built. There will be electricity, there will be water, there will be roads, and we can return home and celebrate. But no, we got to roll up our sleeves. If you are making $100, maybe take $10 every month and say, I will put this money down and to do something in Liberia. I think if we come together in packs, I think 25 Liberians can get together, put $100 per week, per month down and build a small school, build a clinic. You know, these are things that we need to, I would say, engineer our mindset, redesign our thinking to say that maybe if we impact this community, we're impacting one too many. We don't have to go and change Liberia. We just need to have an impact if we all can do that. So that's my goal. My goal is to recruit Liberian businesses and take them home and say, look, we can do so much in our homeland. Why are we not doing that? And you know, the barriers, people complain that this country is this and the country is that. I'm a businessman here. We got issues here. We got regulations. We deal with regulations. We deal with all of these things. We don't complain when we have all of these regulations. I'm in the healthcare business. Do you know how many regulations we have? How many times I have to put my time into just working with the federal government just to deal with all of these regulations? And now you go to Liberia and you have these regulations and you think is there because of corruption? I mean, you know, so I think I understand where they're coming from. I understand government has to create that enabling environment for all of us, and that is where we need to all sit on the table and look at a way forward so that we all can help develop this country.
For practical transformation.
Correct.
Ladies and gentlemen, you tune to GSMTV, and we bringing you a special presentation today with our special guest in the studio, J. Carlton George Jr., the Liberian Consul General here in Minnesota, the Midwest Consul General for the Republic of Liberia. We will be back with more of our discussion, but just before taking a break, let me invite you that if you are a part of the community and would like to take advantage of our broadcasting opportunity, that is to help promote your activities or your programs, we can be contacted at 763-202-7939. Again, that's 763-202-7939. Well, we continue our discussion in studio today with the Honorable Jackson Carlton George. I have to get used to putting a handle to our diplomat's name, ambassador, consular. And he's so cool, he takes whatever name you call him. Well, he's an example of civility within the Liberian community. That's one thing I personally admire about this young man. He encourages people to open doors and to look beyond the horizon. Notwithstanding, however, I personally am still not quite clear about this pro-poor agenda. Now, being an official or diplomatic spokesman for the Liberian government, with all due respect, what is your take on this pro-poor agenda as far as the Liberian Business Association is concerned? Because you are advocating the involvement of Liberians from a non-political side of it. You want Liberians to be able to become involved actively in the resurrection of the Liberian economy. The President Weah said that he inherited a broke government. We know that press reports have continued to talk about a stagnant economy, but the President has also shown determination to revive the economy. Now, this concept of pro-poor, I see it somewhat a little bit, it confuses me, because when you take the word professional and abbreviate it, you get pro. So if you're going to professionalize poverty and tell me you're trying to resurrect Liberians from impoverished poverty conditions, I'm a little bit confused.
Well, you should not.
But I want to be able to help sell the idea to the public. So relieve me of my confusion.
I think you should not. There are many ways to look at the phrase pro-poor agenda. If you can remember, we had from mat to mattresses, total involvement, higher heights. I think these are phrases to get you to understand that if you have over 60% of the country poor, how do you have an agenda that drives that sector into the middle class? And so I think the genius behind this pro-poor agenda is how do we get more poor people into the middle class so that we shrink the poor sector and increase the middle class. I think that's the genius behind that.
Which is the same direction Libya is going.
And I think the idea that the philosophy that Levi is trying to put forth is that if you have a country of that nature, then we must go in and create the environment to create jobs. I think the problem in Liberia right now is we need jobs. And we can't depend on government to do it all. Government, I would love for government to pump its money into roads, into electricity, into port-borne water, and let the private sector drive the other things. Give us security, and then we can move on doing the other things. I don't want government to build all the schools, all the universities, all the clinics. We don't want a socialist country. If government does all of that, then we have a socialist country. So what I'm asking Liberians in the diaspora, especially business owners, is that let us find a way. Let's come up with a diaspora plan that helps the pro-poor agenda. Now, you might say, what can we do if the country is not ready for us to go home? The country will never be ready. There's no country that is ready for every national in exile to go home. But we as Liberians living in exile must be prepared to go home and contribute. Like I always say, we are Liberians. Liberia is for all of us. But I think we depend too much on, we expect one person to do it all. And the president by himself cannot do it all. And the government by itself cannot do it all. And so that's why we need a private sector. I keep saying we need a private sector to drive our economy. And so maybe in a few months to come, people will start to understand what this pro-poor agenda is all about. I think that's why the finance minister and his team came to the United States to share light on this agenda. And the agenda, to me, is based on a couple of things. We need to create jobs. We need to build our country. We need to open up the country. We need to build roads. At one of the town hall meetings, someone said, if Lofa County and Nima County are the breadbasket of Liberia, why are we not opening the roads? Those roads constructions contracts have already been signed. But imagine 6 months out of the year, or 3 to 6 months out of the year, the southeastern region is completely cut off from the country. So yes, if we open the roads down, if we invest
in the western region, Lofa County is the same thing.
But that construction, I think the previous government signed a road construction, so that is already there. So the new administration is looking at opening that road.
On behalf of Liberians who have become so impatient because of extended delay, the pronouncement that it is there, the contracts have been signed, we have previously heard those before. Implementation, anything short of implementation doesn't actually cut it in terms of convincing the anxious or perhaps disgruntled Liberians, because of we have had some diversionary effects, you know, but those are I don't want to drag you into politics, but I mean, you are a young Liberian abroad, and we try to monitor the situation. And as reasonable and supportive as we want to be, we also have to advocate consistency for development. Here you are, Consul General, you will be looking for investors. And another issue in the media in Liberia has been a proposal by the president to have an open invitation to citizenship to foreign investors. Again, I am particularly not too happy with the publicity that the Ministry of Information has done about that, because you have a majority of Liberians are poor. So you are inviting, and then they are resisting dual citizenship. That is a debate still going on, okay, about dual citizenship, where diaspora Liberians are being, in fact, ostracized by fellow Liberians at home. But then the loop is being crossed over everybody, and the extension will be going to rich investors to come. But the raw part of the argument from what we know is that Liberians are afraid that the rich people who come to invest will not respect Liberians who are poor. So when Libya goes in there and tell these poor Liberians, we want you to get involved to participate in the resurrection of your economy, what do they stand on to be able to get involved and compete?
Well, I see it this way. My anger, if you may say that, should be, as Liberians in the diaspora, why don't we come together and invest in our country? Why do we have to be afraid that the Lebanese will buy all the land when we are capable of buying our land ourselves? Why are we afraid? What is in us that prevents us from being Lebanese? So I'm not afraid that, I'm open to the discussion, but we need to come together. If we don't have all of the resources, someone will argue and say, well, the Lebanese got money. They get money from other places and other stuff.
And some will also argue that there has been a tradition of preferential treatment.
Well, we must say that. But I think we need to be businessmen and women. We need to see these things from a business point of view. And I don't think traditionally we are business-oriented. But in terms of what you're saying, I think Liberians, if we can just think Liberia and begin to recondition our minds that it takes all of us to develop this country, and it takes all of us to take ownership of what's happening in our country, I think you will see gradual change coming into Liberia. But we cannot sit outside the country and try to fix what is in the country from the outside. The people who are on the ground, they are understanding what's on the ground. Until you sit in my seat, you do not understand what I go through. So if the people on the ground are making decisions based on the situation and condition, then if we want to be part of that process, we must find a way to do that. Because I tell you what, if you are not on the table, you are on the menu. And so
but the menu is always on the table.
Exactly. So if the menu is on the table. So you either want to be on the table to make the decisions, or you'll be on the menu. So my thing is, pronouncements are being made, yeah. But it takes us, as Liberians, to sit around the table, to say, let us come together. 10 of us can come together. Let's put our $100 together. Let's go and buy that land in Joazon. Let's put a clinic there. No Lebanese will buy it there. Let's be angry because of that. Let's do something because of that. Our anger should not be to sit back in exile and complain and say this is wrong and this is wrong. Let's say if that land over there, if a Lebanese man is going to buy that land, we will buy that land. If a Lebanese man is going to build a clinic over there, we will build a clinic over there. Like the few doctors that got angry and say we're going to build a hospital. That's the anger that we should have. But unfortunately, our anger are always from the outside. Oh,
They
we
just
we
criticize.
just criticize.
Loose
Loose
criticism.
criticism, no constructive criticism. We're not willing to put our money where our mouth is. We need to build strong institutions. If we don't have strong institutions, who's supposed to do it? Government should build all of the strong institutions for us. Then government controls those institutions. So we are the ones. So take, for instance, Liba. We should be strong enough to drive the Liberian economy. Liba Liberia and Liba diaspora. We should be strong enough to contribute to create jobs. Now, if we're creating jobs, we're doing the things we're supposed to do, then we can put pressure on any system. But until we do those things, we're not going to be, we're not ready for prime time. And so I think decisions that are being made in Liberia, I will leave that for people in Liberia, to determine what it is, what they're going through, and how they can change the thing. But I agree with you. I think people are open to their opinions. People might dislike policies and procedures that come about, and it's good for them to do. We're in a 21st century. I think people should be open to express themselves, but I think government would be making decisions based on what government sees at the time that is right for the country.
So going forward, sir, as far as Liba is concerned, you have diaspora Liberians that include some investors who you are challenging to get involved, assume responsibility to direct their resources to investment activities in Liberia. Then you have the segment of Liberians who want to do something, but they need help to get jump started. Mm-hmm. How do you intend to get these people jump started? Now you have this whole process is actually raising more questions than answers. And I agree with you. I must commend you for being on the right track in terms of the challenges that you throw out there are Liberians, particularly those in the diaspora. But there's a hidden factor here. The question of trust, transparency, accountability. So then the people sit there and say, oh yeah, Jackson George, yeah, Councillor Jackson George talking about he bringing investors here. What do you do strategically to what should I say, to nourish the effect of believability, trustworthiness?
Well, I think the issue of trust is on both ends. Liberian businesses have gone home and done wrong, and they've come back to the United States and sat down here.
People carry containers that get missing.
And get missing, or whatever it is.
Barrels lost.
But again, I think the issue is we need to build strong institutions. We need to hold each other accountable. We need to ensure that the people who are saying that they are business owners, they are true business owners. Sometimes it's easy to be an individual in America, and then in Liberia you're a businessman because you are able to put together a container and take it to Liberia, so you become a businessman. I don't think that's the kind of a business we're looking at. But you're right. But I'm very optimistic. I'm also of the opinion that all of these countries that are moving forward now have gone through the same thing that we've gone through. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We just need to adapt and look at what is working. So the trust issue is there. There will always be trust issues. Even in America, we got trust issues. And that's why we got laws and we got all of these regulations and put in place check and balances to ensure that we are checking on each other and making sure these things are happening. Liberia is no different. We have the same books, laws. We almost have the same constitution. We almost have everything else. But if we build these strong institutions, if Liba is strong enough to say, look, we need government to create this environment for us, and this is what we want because we want to invest. But we can't invest until A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H happens. Number two, the executive branch of government is one branch of government. We have the legislative branch of government, and we have the judiciary branch of government. Do we just go and propound on the executive branch of government? Well, what about the legislature that's making the laws? Why don't we also lobby and make sure that they change the law to fit our needs? So we've been making a lot of mistakes too. We just think the executive branch of government is the only branch of government that is supposed to change the way everything is done in Liberia for us to do business. So I think the last time we were in Liberia, we met with the Speaker of the House and the President Pro Tem, and we now beginning to understand the politics and how it works. Let lobby. Why is it in Liberia when you go and shake hands, they call it corruption, but in America they call it lobbying? I mean, what different it is. But other nationals are able to lobby, but we call it, well, we can't do this, we can't do that. If we are businesses, if we are business owners, then let lobby Congress to pass the kind of laws that work in our interest.
Maybe in Liberia we have uncontrolled impunity.
Well, that is for you to say. I mean, I'm not going to delve into that area. I mean, I don't know what you mean, but I'm just saying we need to build strong institutions, and the strong institutions will stand on its own and defend itself. And if we can build these institutions that can defend themselves, then you can see us on a trajectory of moving ahead. But if we are not strong, yeah, people will roll over you. If I had the opportunity to roll over you, I will.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, please don't touch that dial. We'll be right back. Meanwhile, we'd like to invite you to contact us at 763-202-7939. This is GSMTV Network coming to you from Brooklyn Park in Minnesota. Our special guest in the studio today, as we prepare to round up, is the Honorable Jackson George Jr. Carlton, as we know him affectionately, has got the consulate in the Midwest up and running. Although everything is not yet in place, he has given us the assurance that it is now functional. That is the key word. It is functional. But we'll be right back.
I'm gonna walk with Jesus, no matter how far it is.
Well, we're back in the studio, and as we are just about to wrap up, I'd just like to retouch the LeBron Business Association again. I'm sure you got some pending activities. I don't know what your calendar of events look like. You care to update us on that, sir?
Sure. This year, as you know, we had a visit from the Assistant Secretary of State for African Affairs, Ambassador Dano Yamamoto. That was a good meeting. He was on a tour here to meet the West African community, business community. So he met with the Liberian Business Association. We had a fruitful discussion. We had a follow-up teleconference with him concerning how the U.S. policy in Africa and how it affects Africa, and what we could do to work with the appropriate agencies to help our homeland. We will be having our annual program this year in the state of Maryland. We will, in September 29th is the date. We will all be going to Maryland to have our annual program. We are expecting a large turnout in that area. We're also looking at having an investment forum wherein we invite the necessary government agencies to come and do presentation and get investors to come in. And so those are plans that we have. We don't want to overwhelm ourselves. We also have the African Business Women Symposium that should be coming up in June. And so those are what we have on our calendar right now. We are working on an investment group. When we talk about investment, trying to rebuild Liberia, we want to establish an investment group that can pull its resources and say, let's build a manufacturing plant in Kakata. And we have the resources to build a manufacturing plant. So those are things that we are working on. These things take time. And so we are hoping that, like you say, Liberians want quick gratification. We want to see something now. These things are processes. But with a steady hand, we know that we can get that done. And so I'm hoping that more Liberians will join the Liberian Business Association in the diaspora. We are connecting now. We have members from California, North Carolina, Philadelphia, North Dakota, South Dakota, Chicago. I mean, we are expanding. And so we are asking Liberians to join. The kind of resources we have within the Business Association is great. We've been able to identify a lot of resources within our community, and we are continuing to do that. And so my goal is to ensure that we are networking among ourselves. Let me tell you this. A dollar stays 10 minutes within the Liberian community. You get paid, you pay your mortgage, you pay your car note, you buy gasoline, you buy food. Your money is gone. How do we keep a dollar within the Liberian community for 1 week or for an hour? That is, if you want to buy groceries, you go to a Liberian business. If you want to see a dentist, you go to a Liberian dentist. If you want to see a medical doctor, you go to a Liberian doctor that has his own practice. If you want to do your taxes, you go to a Liberian tax preparer. I do understand that we have challenges. I do understand that the issue of confidentiality and other stuff that have plagued our community for so long, these things, when we meet at our monthly meeting, we discuss some of these issues. But we need to trust each other.
To promote professionalism.
Professionalism. That's why we have our monthly meeting and we discuss best practices and how we can change the mindset of our people to support our businesses. Because at the end of the day, it is us. If something went wrong in our community, people come to our businesses for help. How many Asians do you see coming to buy groceries from a Liberian grocery store? But how well do we line up to go to the Asian market stores to buy from them?
Yeah.
But when something went wrong in our community, we come to the people we don't support. And so while we are working on the trust issue, the confidentiality, we have an ethics committee that we're building in to make sure that we have ethical rules and procedure that protect us as businesses. But equally so, we need Liberians to make it a conscious decision to support Liberian-owned businesses so that we can keep a dollar in our community. And remember, every Liberian business you support has an extension in Liberia. So you're not only supporting that Liberian business, but you're also supporting your homeland. Mm-hmm. And so these are things that we need to think about. How can we support our homeland? You don't necessarily have to go and build a house in Liberia, but support your own. You're going to eat anyway. You're going to eat anyway. You're going to file your taxes anyway. You know? So these are things that we will. I always tell Liberian, let's be Liberian, let's think Jewish. Seriously. And so if we can start supporting ourselves, 40,000 Liberians in the state of Minnesota, plus. Tell me, we have our own market. We have what it takes to build a community in Liberia. And so this investment group that we're talking about is not only to Liberian businesses. We are looking at all of us coming together. If you want to be a part of this investment group, you come in, you would invest into this group. And if we decide as a group that we want to put a packaging company in, a packaging plant in Kakata or in Buchanan or somewhere in Liberia,
or perhaps to help the women in Sukoromo.
Exactly.
Because I just seen a report there by Stanton Peabody on social media that a group of women have organized themselves and now they are manufacturing cassava products, carbohydrates into different forms, but they are stranded.
Correct. So if we have an investment group and we find a group like that contact us and say, look, we need the machines for this and this, it costs this, that's an investment. They got real product, we got investment. Not only do we have that investment, we have the market. We have 2 Liberians, one in Texas and one in Minnesota, that are distributors that are distributing to major grocery stores. I mean, why is it that they are purchasing the gari from Sierra Leone and Guinea, the palm oil from Ghana and Togo, you know, cassava leaf coming from there?
Because you have the Liberian production stock in Sukoromo, it cannot reach the coastal area. The furthest it will go, perhaps they're not even reaching Banga.
Correct.
Because of lack of road
But connection. This is where I say as businesses, we need to find a way. We businesses, we need to come together and say, look, if we got to put a conveyor belt
No,
Hold on.
let pave the road
Hold on.
first.
Well, that's for government to do. I mean, government will have to do that. That's for government to do. Yeah. But if government doesn't pave the road, if we have to put a conveyor belt to get that cassava leaf to come here because we buying it at $2 in Liberia and we selling it for $10 in the United States,
nobody's selling dumbo in America, but these women are packaging dumbo.
Correct. And so what we need to do is to connect with them. One of the things that is affecting us as a country is the flow of information and the connectivity. How do we connect with the right resources? And I think Liberians in Liberia should use the Liberian Business Association on this end to connect their product. We need to see more product coming out of Liberia. And that's my goal. I want to see shipping out of Liberia, a lot of shipping out of Liberia. We have a lot of containers going in, and we want to see a lot of shipment coming out of Liberia. Why can't we put a food processing plant in Liberia to process our cassava leaf when we eat cassava leaf, potato greens, and all of these things? We can grow more food. We hire more farmers to grow more food. They will hire more people on the farm. We have a processing plant. People working at the port will make more money. We're shipping these things. Packaging companies will make money. I mean, and
GSMTV will be here to help promote
correct.
It with enough support.
So I think we at the point where this bubble got to bust, but we have not been able to break the code. And I tell you, Liberians are smart people.
Because, sir, there is still a conversation that needs to be continuously had, and GSMTV comes in to fill that void. Because we just saw the other day. In fact, Reverend Vincent and I were discussing it off camera. Nigerian President Buhari was here. He was at the White House, and the mainstream media kind of downplayed the visit, compared to the visitation of presidents from other parts. But just because we have to rise to the occasion. We do. And this is one thing that GSMTV would like to do. On that note, sir, I was just about to go there, right. But I'd like to give you the opportunity now. Now that you say you're challenging Liberians in the diaspora to go out there and invest instead of just loosely being critical of what's happening. A member of your community lost her life the other day, Joyce Otu Jawed. We just buried her here. I'm sure you're fully aware of the situation. There's an opportunity for you to express official condolence to her family by means of GSMTV, and then briefly address that'll be my last issue because I want you to come back. I don't want to stress you out here today on the issue of DACA.
I think on behalf of the foreign mission and the government of Liberia, we want to say sorry. I know the husband Bowie very well. I was at the wake and the funeral. And it's a sad event, and I'm sure there is an ongoing investigation into the matter. And I just want the family to understand that from my end, whatever I can do, I will. But it was a sad event, and these things should not happen the way they happen. And so I just want to say again, on behalf of the ambassador, the foreign mission, and the government, we want to say sorry to the family. We ask God favor in years to come that they will give them peace of mind. But it's not an easy thing. I don't know what I would do if I went through the same processes. I can't say much about it because I haven't been through such a thing, but I know it's hard and it's sad. That we have to go through these things.
So what is your fate on DACA?
As you know, the administration, the government of the United States ended the DED, the Deferred Enforced Departure, on the 31st of March. The president gave a wind-down period, a one-year wind-down period. That period is...
Not necessarily an extension.
Well, you can debate the terminology. Some people call it, if you give me a one-year wind-down period as an extension, you can debate the terminology being used. But from the foreign mission, we call it, we take it literally, it's a one-year wind-down period.
Wind down.
That period is supposed to give you the time to prepare yourself to
Exit.
to return home. Notwithstanding, if you already have your work permit, you have a six months automatic renewal, so you don't have to renew that. Go to renew it right now. But what they've advised that you renew it now, you start the process because it takes some time. So by the time the 6 months is over, you have the balance 6 months to work in the United States. This wind down, the DED is not a status. It doesn't give you the right to be here. The work permit is for you to work. So in this wind down period, if you were found into any crime, if you commit a crime, I would say domestic violence, DWI, you could be deported. And so my advice to Liberians would be, if there are other avenues for which you can regularize your status, go ahead and do that. There are many ways to kill a cat. The cat must die. So I think if you have any other option, if you have a wife that is a U.S. citizen, I would say file your paperwork. If you have your kid that is over 18, let that kid file for you. I mean, there's so many different ways you can regularize your status. At the consulate right now, we have a lawyer that is there to answer questions. She comes in. She gave you the first introductory interview free. So if you own DED and you want to talk to a legal counsel, please call the consulate at 763-703-5963. That is 763-703-5963. Schedule an appointment, sit down with a legal counsel, discuss your issue, and find out what are your opportunities. If you are on DED and you have not gotten your driver's license, you can print out the paperwork, because some people driver's license expired. And you can go down to the motor vehicle division and show that letter. They will reinstate your driver's license. What we are asking Liberians in the diaspora to do is to be law-abiding. Times have changed. And so in as much as it is a sad event, we are hoping that the advocates, all the groups that are advocating and doing the necessary things that they need to do, will continue to do that, so that this whole situation could change for Liberians. But other than that, I just came back from Washington. The ambassador had invited us to go to State Department for clarification on this DED issue, and State Department made its clarification. Yesterday I was in Washington having another meeting with ICE, and we had a long discussion about the process being put in place come March 31st, 2019. And so it's serious. And so I don't want Liberians sitting there and say, I got a 1 year and the brakes are off, I can be here. Prepare yourself on both ends. Make sure that you're preparing yourself in Liberia to return. Make sure that if you have any option to change your status into a permanent residency, take advantage of that. Or the last option, get a power of attorney if you got a home, get a lawyer, talk to a lawyer, try to get your stuff in order just in case if you got arrested, because in jail you don't have the time to say, go to my house, pick up this and pick up that. I'm hoping that no Liberian get arrested, but I'm hoping that, again, the advocates will work their way, have petitions, and the government will find some reason to have a stay. But I think Liberia is the last group that have been removed from DED. I think there's another group, but I think Liberia is now off, so we don't have that DED status anymore.
Mm. Well, and then I guess for those of you who have been listening, one thing that we've done in this community has been to procrastinate, because we created a boogeyman. That is, we only talk to people who told us things that made us feel comfortable, and so we went underground instead of tackling the issue. Do not run from your fears. Face your fears by going to the right resources. As the counselor just said, you can go to the consulate, contact the consulate, and talk to somebody who can give you legal advice. It's much better than talking to your friend, talking to your cousin, you know, or that loved one who will mislead you because they don't want you to feel bad. So they give you misleading information, and then it wipes away time. And the moment you decide to take action, it is a little bit too late. This has been the experience of many people across many Liberian communities in America. But we hope there is still time to do something for those who have better opportunities. Well, having said that, I'd like to say, Honorable Ambassador, thank you very much on behalf of GSMTV. It's been a pleasure, and now that we have resumed our presentations here, we look forward to seeing you in the studio again because we want to stay as close as possible and be a link between your office, your consulate, and the Liberian community in the in Minnesota, the Midwest for that matter.
I think this is a good avenue to get the message out there. I think Liberians should take advantage of this opportunity. If you have a business or if you have organization, one of the things that I'm also encouraging is Liberian organizations to support the causes in Liberia. We got
We're support the causes here too now.
Exactly.
Including
exactly.
GSMTV.
GSMTV. GSMTV been around for so long.
Yeah.
We need to get GSMTV to the next level. We need donations. And so whenever you need a fund drive and you want me to be part of that fund drive, let me know. But I love your annual program. I'm sure I will be back to the annual program and we can raise some funds out of that annual program to ensure that we do some things that we need to do. But long live GSMTV.
Thank you, sir. And long live our consulate. Well, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of GSMTV, my name is Joe Morris, wishing you well. Until then, good night.